Hello, friends. It is so great to be here with you. My name is Randy Moragus, and I have the honor of serving as the pastor of Lifeline's Recovery Ministry here at The Crossing. And when Pastor Andrew asked me to speak to you today about a topic so near and dear to my heart, I just had to say yes. You see, my life's mission is to help people affected by mental health and addiction issues. And May 4th is Star Wars Day. You know, May the 4th be with you. I love Star Wars. Anyone else? For me, the Force is God's Holy Spirit, who I regularly rely on for wisdom and for guidance. For those of you who don't know me, I used to be a full-time pastor here at the Crossing Church and have been the pastor of Lifeline's Recovery Ministry for over 17 years. I'm married to my amazing and beautiful wife, Kim, who also used to be on staff here at the Crossing. Now she's an incredible school teacher. And together we've got a blended family of 5 kids and 3 grandkids. Never a dull moment, let me tell you. I'm the founder and CEO of the nonprofit Care Possible, whose mission is to provide free mental health and addiction care to veterans, military families, and low-income families. And in the past 12 years, we've provided over $5 million in treatment services to people in crisis, including over $300,000 in services to members of the Crossing. I'm also in private practice as a counselor, so I really live this stuff in this current series on mental health every day. And I love helping people learn that they can have a better quality of life and have healing from things like anxiety, depression, and addiction. I'm currently working on my PhD in neuropsychology, so the things I share with you today are both biblically sound. I'm licensed and ordained as a pastor, but they'll also be clinically and scientifically sound. And my goal is that everyone gets at least one takeaway, one tool or inspiration or insight that improves the quality of your life and your relationships with God and with the people in your life. Today, I will be talking about addiction, and I know that right off the bat, some of you may think, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me, so I'm just gonna tune out, maybe go on my phone that I'm definitely not addicted to. But I wanna challenge you, stay tuned in. Because even if you don't have any addictions, you probably know someone who does. You know, there are currently 48.5 million people with a substance use disorder in our country and about 240 fatal overdoses every day in our country. It's literally like a jumbo jet crashing every day, day after day, over and over again. And you know, if that was happening, the government would step in, would do something about it. But I really believe because of addiction's got stigma and confusion, they're not doing anything, so we on the community level need to get on the solution side. So even if you don't have any addiction issues, today you can learn something to help someone who does, or at least to understand them better. I think we're all in recovery from something. If it's not addiction, maybe it's pain or loss, but most people need healing from something. And today's message is a message of hope and healing. I love the acronym for the word hope. Hold on, pain ends. Hold on, pain ends. A big part of my inspiration for what I do and for talking with you all today is that my mother died of an overdose. It was one of the most painful experiences in my life. It still hurts, but I've done a lot of grief work. I like to say dealing with the feelings, the beginning of the healing. I really believe that our pain often becomes our purpose. So if you're here today and you're wondering what your purpose in life could be or what your ministry could be, just ask yourself, what tough stuff have you been through? That's probably where you're gonna find the answer. And I'd like to share an actual case history that is a story of hope, as well as a great example of how addiction can happen to anyone. We often think of people with addiction issues as a certain type of person, but trust me, it can happen to anyone. And this actual case history involves a Marine Corps veteran, a true American hero that I got to work with years ago. He was a Care Possible case. His job in the Marine Corps was he was a minesweeper. And one day, one of those mines blew up and he got a lot of injuries. And so he was given unlimited access to opioids for all the pain that he truly had. But by the time he finished his time in the Marine Corps and was honorably discharged, he was discharged with untreated PTSD and an active opioid addiction. Fast forward about 6 months, he was homeless, living on the streets of South Orange County, near kidney failure, near death, and severely addicted to opioids, and his mom heard about Care Possible, reached out to me, and within 24 hours, we had him in a great detox, and then we got him into an inpatient treatment program, and then we gave him about 2 years of free therapy and counseling, and now he's got continuous years of great mental health, sobriety. He's a business owner. He gives back to the community. So let me tell you, whatever you or a loved one may be going through, man, there is always hope, especially when we invite God into the mix. One of my favorite verses is Jeremiah 29:11, where God tells us, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." God does have a plan for you, and it's a good one, but to experience God's plan, we've got to make choices, have behaviors that honor God, and just invite Him into our journey. Another one of my favorite verses is Psalm 143:10, where the psalmist cries out to God and says, "Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit, the force, lead me on level ground." That's one of my life verses, and I actually say it in my head every morning when I wake up, and it's the foundation verse for my talk today. You see, I really want to do God's will, but sometimes in life, I've fallen short. Is it just me? So I rely on God and His Spirit, the force, to guide me. And for anyone else who, like me, falls short sometimes, guess what? We're in pretty good company. You see, there's this guy named Paul who wrote a huge chunk of the New Testament, and he confessed this about himself in the book of Romans, where he said in chapter 7, verse 15, he said this about himself. He said, "I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway." Is it just me, or can you relate to this too? So if this guy Paul, who wrote much of the New Testament and actually met Jesus on the road to Damascus, literally had a come to Jesus meeting, if he struggles with some behaviors, well, it makes sense that many of us would too. And understanding addiction can be very confusing, so I want to share about the top 3 myths about addiction. There's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of stigma about addictions, so today I want all of us to get on this level, educated playing field together. So the first top myth about addiction, and it's probably the most controversial one, but please hear me out. The first myth is that addiction is a choice or a moral weakness. Addiction is a choice or a moral weakness. People often say, very much like Paul said about himself, hey, if they really wanted to stop using drugs or alcohol, they could. Or if they really loved me, they would stop using. Now, there are substance addictions like drugs or alcohol, which most people think of in terms of addictions. And then there are also behavioral, or what are called process addictions, things like gambling, food, gaming. But let's look at substance addictions first. Substances like opioids, alcohol, methamphetamine, they change the brain. They rewire the brain's reward system. Over time, the brain prioritizes the substance over anything else, including survival instincts, relationships, and even our own personal safety. Take a look at this brain scan image. The scan on the far left, under where it says 30 days, shows the brain of someone who has just stopped their addictive behaviors. It looks like there are holes in that person's brain, especially in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain right behind the forehead that makes important decisions and sees the consequences of our choices. They aren't actual holes, they are areas where the scanner isn't picking up any activity. Seeing that person's brain, seeing their brain scan, do you think they really have the capacity to just stop all on their own? Probably not. That's why they need support from professionals, from their family and friends, and from programs like Lifelines and AA. Well, the good news is that with 90 days, if you see the middle scan image there, with 90 days of abstinence from the addictive substance, combined with activities that stimulate neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the rewiring of the brain, things like prayer, exercise, learning new things. Within 90 days, the brain can really start to heal. That's why we often tell people in early recovery to do 90 meetings in 90 days, because it's a catalyst to healing the brain. And the great news is that within 1 year, if you see that far right image, within 1 year, the brain can fully heal for most people. How cool is it that God created us that way? So we have substance addictions, which are known as SUDs, substance use disorders, and we also have behavioral addictions, often called process addictions. These are behaviors like gambling, gaming addiction. I actually have several clients right now with a diagnosis called IGD, Internet Gaming Disorder. We could have food addiction, social media addiction, just to name a few. Those behaviors, they trigger dopamine spikes in our brain, reinforcing the need to do the behaviors again and again. So it's not really about weakness. It's more of a hijacked brain chasing after relief or reward. Addiction is the only disease where your brain lies to you. You know, if you have pretty much any other disease, your brain's gonna tell you, go to the doctor, get treatment, take care of yourself. But when we have the disease of addiction, our brain lies to us. It says, you've got this. No one knows. Have a breath mint, because it's hijacked and it's just screaming for that next dose of dopamine from doing the addictive behavior. So the first myth is that addiction is a choice or a moral weakness. It's not. Medically, addiction is considered a treatable brain disease. And if there were a way to scientifically prove that addiction is a choice or a moral weakness, trust me, insurance companies would have done that years ago, because they spend over $35 billion each year for people to go to detox and rehab. The second myth is that people need to hit rock bottom before they can recover. People need to hit rock bottom before they can recover. This was a belief for many years by many people. I used to believe this, but now with the powerful opioid fentanyl showing up in so many other drugs, waiting for someone to hit rock bottom could be a death sentence. And this belief in the need to hit rock bottom, it often delays much needed help. You know, we don't wait for people with other diseases to get worse before helping them, so why would we do this with addiction? Well, it's usually from a lack of understanding. In addition to being an addiction counselor, I'm also a certified interventionist, and when we do an intervention, we do what's called raising the bottom instead of letting the loved one hit bottom, where they could die. You know, this means we teach the family things like stop enabling behavior, only help their loved one towards recovery and healing. And we also teach the family to get counseling themselves and to attend Al-Anon, a great support group for people who have a loved one with an addiction. Research shows that early support like counseling, harm reduction, or even medication for some people can prevent a tragedy like I experienced with my mom. And I would not wish that on anyone. And if you're struggling, or you know of someone struggling with addiction, I urge you, please keep Narcan, the opioid overdose reversal drug, on hand. My nonprofit, Care Possible, is an official Narcan distributor, and we've given out thousands of doses and saved countless lives. I've done Narcan trainings and distributions here at Lifelines, and each time afterwards I got calls or texts from folks telling me that they used the Narcan we gave out to save the life of someone overdosing. And now that person, those people, have a second chance. So the first myth is that addiction is a choice or a moral weakness. It's not. It's a treatable brain disease. The second myth is that people need to hit rock bottom before we can help them. They don't. We can raise the bottom for most people. The third myth is that rehab is a quick fix. Rehab is a quick fix. 30-day rehab programs known as inpatient treatment, they can be amazing and they can be true lifesavers, but they're often seen as the total cure. They're really just one step in the healing process. Addiction is a chronic disease like diabetes or hypertension, and it requires ongoing support. Aftercare, after rehab, like outpatient treatment, community support groups, therapy, sometimes medication, those things are crucial for long-term success and recovery. Recovery from addiction is a lifestyle. And as I often say at Lifelines, for people with a history of addiction, any day that they're not working on their recovery, they're working on their next relapse, which could be deadly. And with behavioral addictions, treatment really needs to address the underlying issues like is there trauma, anxiety, depression, isolation, not just the behavior. Simply removing access to the behavior, like taking away a cell phone or an Xbox or banning someone from a casino, rarely works unless the emotional psychological, and spiritual issues are treated. It's important to understand that most people with any type of addiction, they've got some kind of underlying trauma that needs to be healed before successfully treating the addiction long term. The addiction's often just a symptom of some deeper hurt. So 30 days at rehab's a great start, but it's not enough time to treat the underlying trauma that likely caused the addiction in the first place. To have true and lasting recovery after rehab, most people need therapy, support groups like Lifelines, AA, or NA. They need a healthy tribe of safe people on a similar healing journey. They need lifestyle changes like exercise, healthy eating. And man, I'm a huge fan of getting plugged into a great church like The Crossing for spiritual and community support. The American Society of Addiction Medicine, the organization that board certifies medical doctors to treat addictions, has a definition for addiction that reads, addiction is a biological, psychological, sociological, and spiritual affliction. So even scientists agree that spiritual growth, just like you find right here at The Crossing, is part of the healing solution. So please get plugged in, join a small group, get plugged in here at The Crossing. People need more than a short stint in rehab. They need a safe community like Lifelines here at The Crossing. Lifeline's mission is to be a safe place for those on the journey of recovery to meet and grow in Christ. We have about 500 attendees meeting at 7 p.m. every Friday in the loft, plus we've got 2 great support groups, plus we live stream on the official Lifelines Facebook page, which I hope you'll follow. And we have people watch from across the country and as far away as Australia. And Lifelines has great music with super talented recording artists. We've got world-class speakers, authors, celebrities, psychiatrists, therapists, pastors. In fact, Pastor Andrew is going to be our guest speaker this coming Friday. And we've got a lot of people with long-term recovery who walk the talk and are such inspirational role models. So much great stuff happens at Lifelines. In fact, in the past few months, we've had over 400 people that have decided to follow Jesus at Lifelines. Over 400. How cool is that? And then many of them go on to attend church here and serve and get baptized here at The Crossing on Sundays. And we've got about 40 dedicated Lifelines volunteers who serve with excellence every week. And some of them aren't even in recovery. They just love the vibe and the teaching so much that they want to be a part of it. So if you think Lifelines may be a good fit for you or someone you care about, please join us on a Friday. While you're there, please come say hi to me. I'd love to meet you. And if you have a loved one struggling with an addiction, I know firsthand how painful, how confusing that is. And if you have no idea how to even talk to them about it, how to start a conversation that could maybe lead to moving things in a healthier direction, here's what I recommend you do. I want you to think through the answers to these 3 questions I'm going to give you. Write down, memorize the answers, and then talk with your loved one, sharing your answers. Share from the heart. Don't read them off the paper, but look them in the eye. Share from the heart. And I recommend bathing that situation in prayer first. I like to say prepare with pre-prayer. I like to say it. It's not easy to say, but you want to pray first and then invite them to talk with you, preferably in the morning before they've had a chance to use any substances. And these are the 3 questions that I want you to think about to help your loved one. The first question is, what have I seen? What have I seen? What have you observed? The second question is, what are my fears? Think about your fears. What's the worst that could happen? And the third question is, what are my hopes? What do you hope for your loved one? What's the best that could happen? For example, you could say, Billy, I love you, but I've seen that you're struggling in life. I've seen that you're stuck. You're not happy. You're not healthy. You're not living this rich, rewarding life that I just love to see for you. And my fear is that you could have a fatal overdose or a DUI or some other serious health issue. And I fear you're going to regret not living a life you're proud of and passionate about. And my hope is that you would say yes to this help. And then you give them options based on their specific needs, maybe detox, maybe rehab, maybe counseling, maybe attending Lifelines. And in this meeting, you don't yell, you don't get judgmental, you come from a place of love and grace, just hoping and praying that they say yes to some help. And that's really what Jesus models for us, balancing grace and truth together, like in the story of Jesus with the woman at the well. In John chapter 4, Jesus meets the Samaritan woman, and from different cultures, they're really not even supposed to talk to each other. He approaches her with kindness and grace, but soon he calls her out on her stuff and her history, but he leaves her with love and hope and healing. One of my favorite classes in seminary, it was a class called Practical Theology, and it taught me how to show God's love in useful ways. So as I close out my time with you today, I want to show you some of God's love in a useful way and offer some free scholarships for care and for counseling. First, if you're struggling with addiction or mental health issues and would like some counseling, but you don't have insurance, you don't have any resources, my nonprofit Care Possible would love to offer you a scholarship for free counseling with one of our excellent therapists. And if you're a military veteran struggling with addiction or PTSD or both, they often happen together, and perhaps you're ready for some help, we would love to offer you a free treatment scholarship valued at over $30,000, but you're worth it. You know, my message to military veterans is that asking for help is a sign of courage and wisdom, not weakness. To apply for any of these scholarships, please just shoot me an email at randy@carepossible.org. Now, you may be asking yourself, what does all this have to do with Jesus? I mean, this wasn't your typical church sermon. Well, Jesus said in John 10:10, this is Jesus talking, he said, "The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life." Addictions, they steal, they kill, and they destroy everything in our lives. But Jesus, he wants you to have a rich and satisfying life. And my hope is that today's message will lead to a richer, more satisfying life for you or your loved ones. And I'd like to close our time today by saying a blessing over you, if that's okay. So if you're comfortable doing so, please hold out your hands in this posture of expectancy or expecting to get something good from God as I share this blessing from the Old Testament. Ready? Here comes the blessing. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. You are worthy. Thank you.